I'm constantly amazed at the number of new, high-end motor vehicles that I see in the area where I live. Admittedly, it's not typical Sydney, and the temptation is to just assume that all the owners of these cars must be wealthy and easily able to afford them. However, even when I venture further afield, there is a surprisingly, to me anyway, high percentage of recent model cars on the roads that cost in excess of $76,950, the luxury car tax threshold for vehicles that don't qualify as fuel efficient. The reality is that motor vehicles are expensive to own and maintain. As such, allocating too much of your personal spending to motor vehicles may seriously hamper your financial health, either delaying or making it impossible to achieve financial independence. In this video, we'll have a look at how consistent the apparent high volume of luxury car purchases is with household income and wealth data discussed in a previous blog, Household Income and Wealth in Australia. In summary, the findings suggest that the average high-end car buyer seems to be more concerned about giving the appearance of being in good financial health rather than actually achieving it. Hi, I'm John Lesky, retired personal financial advisor and founder of FinHealth, a guide to good financial health and your financial independence. I was unable to find robust data on new car sales by both brand and value. Therefore, as a proxy for the number of high-end value passenger vehicle sales, I have simply used sales made by those brands normally regarded as luxury manufacturers. While many of these manufacturers have cheaper base or entry-level models for less than $76,950, that is, the luxury car tax threshold, it's assumed that these sales would be offset by sales from non-luxury manufacturers in excess of $76,950. For the first half of 2023, sales by luxury manufacturers accounted for 13.2% of all passenger vehicle sales, with Mercedes, BMW, Audi, Lexus and Tesla comprising 87% of the total. Applying this percentage to the 3.75 million cars sold in Australia that were manufactured between January 2018 and January 2023 suggests about 500,000 high-end vehicles were purchased in the 5 years to January 2023. That is, on average, about 100,000 a year. Now, many people think, and the luxury car marketers want you to believe, that wealthy people drive luxury motor vehicles. But based on the household income and wealth data published by the Australian Bureau of Statistics and discussed in our blog Household Income and Wealth in Australia, there are only about 2.4% or 231,000 of households with wealth in excess of $5 million in 2019-20. While these wealthy households almost certainly purchase some of the high-end vehicles sold each year, it's most likely that the majority are purchased by households with net worth less than $5 million. In fact, for many wealthy households, avoiding the high costs of luxury car ownership is a key to becoming and remaining wealthy. So, let's have a look at the costs of owning a non-fuel efficient luxury car before financing. We'll assume the new car value is of $100,000 for luxury car tax purposes, implying an upfront tax payment of $6,915. Often neglected, but essential given that cars depreciate and need to be replaced at some stage, an annual allowance for replacement should be included as a notional ongoing cost. As a rule of thumb, I assume a life of 10 years and spread the replacement cost equally over that period. For our example, this implies an annual replacement cost of $10,000. Other regular running costs vary by such factors as age, type, use, location of the vehicle, and the way the vehicle is driven. But as a rough indication, we'll use the figures provided by Budget Direct in their article, Car Running Costs in Australia 2022. This table provides Australian annual average running cost as at Q3 2022. Costs associated with a $100,000 vehicle could be expected to be more than the average as shown, but we're also assuming a newer than average car, implying lower servicing costs. So, let's say average annual running costs of $10,000 a year before any financing is taken into account. This means that replacement allowance and running costs are roughly $20,000 a year for the privilege of owning and maintaining a $100,000 motor vehicle. Assuming no tax deductibility of these costs, this implies $37,736 of annual pre-tax income at the top marginal tax rate is dedicated to car ownership. Now, the household income and wealth data indicated that in 2019-20, only about 10.2% or 990,000 of households had total pre-tax income in excess of $234,000. For such relatively high income households, this means owning a $100,000 motor vehicle could have been consuming as much as 16% of their annual pre-tax income. And remember, that's before any financing costs are taken into account. Research from Finder suggests that around 12% of Australians, or 2.4 million people, have a personal loan for car purchase. Given that most of these loans would be for cars less than 5 years old, and roughly 60% of those loans were to purchase new rather than used cars, we estimate that personal loans are used to finance at least 40% of new car purchases. However, even this understates the extent of new car purchases that are financed. Rather than take out a personal loan, it's often more cost effective for many to redraw on their home loan instead. It's also less confronting than taking out a new loan and is often justified as a reward for having sufficiently reduced the mortgage balance. But if, for example, we assume a $60,000 personal loan over 5 years at a currently competitive interest rate of 6.5% a year, car repayments would add another about $14,000 a year to the cost of owning a $100,000 vehicle. The total cost of ownership increases to $34,000, requiring pre-tax income of about $64,000 a year at the top marginal tax rate to service. Even for those households that sit at the lower end of the top 10% of Australian household incomes, this is a huge potential impost, up to about 27% of pre-tax income. If at the same time a mortgage must be serviced, taxes paid, children educated, perhaps a second car maintained, and other basic ongoing lifestyle needs met, it's not hard to see that the goal of financial independence or good financial health implicitly must take a very low priority. It's difficult to resist the conclusion reached by the late Dr. Thomas Stanley, an authority on the habits of the wealthy in the USA, in his 2009 book Stop Acting Rich, that the relationship for many, if not most, between ownership of luxury cars and financial health is inverse. That is, the more expensive car you drive, the further away from your version of financial independence you're likely to be. His research found that, and I quote, "It's just not true that the rich drive expensive cars. The median price paid for motor vehicles among millionaires surveyed was $31,367. Truly rich people don't drive BMWs, they drive Toyotas." He also found that 86% of all prestige luxury makes of motor vehicles are driven by non-millionaires. Most are purchasing in anticipation of financial success rather than as a reward for it, simultaneously reducing the chances of achieving good financial health. And as for borrowing to purchase a luxury vehicle, Stanley found that 94% of real millionaires purchase their cars outright rather than lease or finance them. Borrowing to buy a depreciating asset rarely makes good financial sense. So if you're serious about becoming financially independent, and unless you're on a very high income and are already wealthy, you should resist the luxury car temptation. You can console yourself in the knowledge that many, if not most, of those who have succumbed are more likely concerned with appearing financially successful rather than actually becoming financially successful. Hopefully, you found this video of interest. I'd like to know what you think. Please provide any comments or questions below. And finally, thanks for watching.